Hi guys, this is Will Terry here, and I've got Dominic Glover today, and I'm really excited about doing this interview. We're gonna call this one "Totally Legal Fan Art," but we're not gonna get to that right away. We're gonna make everybody watch, right? So, okay, so I'll start by saying basically how I met you, and then we can
Okay.
go from there. So, I was at Denver Comic Con, right?
Yeah, we met in, I think, 2015
At
is the
Denver.
first time I saw you in
Yeah.
person.
And then where did I see you the second time?
Second time was 2016 because then I had a table there.
At Denver.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I recall, you were upstairs.
No, I was two rows behind you.
Okay. You know what's funny is like when you do a bunch of shows, they just all start to run together.
Yeah, yeah. I think the one you're thinking about is we were both there at Albuquerque.
Okay, okay. I knew. Yeah, I thought like I'm losing it because I was like, I remember going upstairs. Yeah. So I just saw you
Yeah.
a few months ago. What was it?
Yeah, we were both in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
In January or something.
Yeah, I think it was like January 12th or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who follow my channel, you know that I do children's books and I teach at sbslearn.com, and then I also do comic conventions and kind of have that those three different pieces of income coming in, and I'm always inspired by artists that are just doing great work, and so Dominic is kind of one of those guys that kind of caught my eye, and I can't remember which one it was. I guess it was in Denver where I started really seeing your work, and then in Albuquerque, and I was just like, I got to get this guy on the show because number one, you never stop smiling.
Yeah, I'm a pretty happy guy.
Yeah. And two, you have had a really unique way of doing fan art that we'll get to. But I kind of just want everybody to kind of, so one of the things that I think is valuable about having someone like you on is, one, I'm assuming you're pretty young. I haven't asked how old you are, but how old are you? Do you mind?
26.
Okay, yeah. I figured you were probably still in your 20s, and I think a lot of artists that are starting out will probably relate to you probably more than me because I've been around for a while, and my entry into illustration is a lot different now than what a lot of people are experiencing because I came in through the editorial way, and you did not. You like some of your first paid stuff was graphic design, right?
Yeah, so I went to school for graphic design, and
Where'd you go?
so like if you kind of, I won't go too far back, but if you track kind of like my professional art career,
Uh-huh.
like original plan was to go to the Joe Kubert School of Art in New Jersey, and that's a very, very competitive comic book school. I think it's the only comic book school in America.
Wow.
And I think they only accept around like 100 applicants per year. And so, I was 17 years old, applied there, and of course I didn't get in. That you got to be top of the line, and instead I went into graphic design, and I got a 4-year degree here in Denver at the Platt School of Design,
Mm-hmm.
and started working in advertising agencies and different design firms and like stuff like that, doing web design, logo design. Um, and the art stuff didn't really start taking off till my mom. She owns her own daycare,
Uh-huh.
and she went to like a daycare kind of convention or like networking event. And of course, at these events, they have schools and librarians and also children's book authors. And my mom always bought these books for her kids at her daycare, and from this one author. And the author, I guess, lost her illustrator, and my mom was like, hey, like my son, like he draws, he does graphic design, like maybe he can help you out. And so I got her contact information. We talked it out, and she's like, "So can you draw my character in my book? Like, it needs to look exactly like, all my previous books." And she had 3 books in the series, and she needed this new book was going to be the 4th one. And so yeah, I went home and practiced drawing like her character, matching the previous illustrator, and I was just trying to find some resources on how to do it. And I found your YouTube channel, and then found svslearn.com, and kind of went from there. And that just kind of like spiraled into me going find like Bobby Chu's channel. And probably within that year, like as I was illustrating the children's book, I went to a schoolism workshop.
And what year was this?
This was around like 2014, 2015.
So
And
you were finished with school then?
yeah, I finished with school, and I was working at an advertising agency. And so this was just all on the side. And
Okay. And then you went to schoolism to the one of his workshops?
yeah, so I went to one of the workshops here in Denver, and they had like Bobby Chu was there, and Steven Silver, J. Scott Campbell. And J. Scott Campbell actually lives here in Denver, so I got to spend some time with him like on the side too, to kind of learn some of his comic book stuff, and that was very helpful too.
So you started doing that kind of stuff, but let's back up for a second. The graphic design, like how did you get those jobs at the advertising agency? Were you working like in-house? Were you hired by them? Or are you doing like freelance for them? How did that work?
Um, so I graduated college in 2012, and 2011. One of my professors at my school, he entered my portfolio into the Colorado Art and Design Student of the Year contest. So it's over 64,000 students apply, and he entered me into it, and I actually ended up winning, and I got into the Denver Post here, and getting that kind of attention, I was able to kind of pick my job of what I wanted to do, because winning Student of the Year out of 64,000 students is it attracted a lot of attention. And so yeah, I got hired at some cool advertising agencies, and that was my badge that I could walk around with for a while and be like, this is what I won just as a student, like. And then I could work at this advertising agency, and I was like, yeah, I'm 21 working at this big advertising agency, and so that kind of got me some credit.
How'd you graduate into, like, you were like 21 when you graduated or something like that?
Well, I also graduated high school early too. So
because I'm doing the math and I'm like,
yeah, so I graduated high school when I was 17, so a year early. So I didn't have a senior year of high school, and so I went to college early, and so that's kind of how that math works out.
You a smart artist? Is that what I'm
getting? My family's pretty academic. Like, my dad graduated valedictorian, and wow, that drove me a lot.
In this interview right now.
but it was always about the art. Like my grandma wanted me to be a doctor, and I was like, no, I want to draw comic books someday. Like, that's what I want to do. And getting turned down by the Joe Kubert School of Art, like, that was pretty sad. I was like, oh, well, I'm never going to reach that goal, so I'll just do graphic design. Like, I know I can draw, and this is a field that will employ people that know how to draw and how to design and stuff like that.
Do you love doing graphic design?
At times. It's not, like, I think when you're younger, people think that graphic design, and I think it used to be this way. I think after like 2008 and the recession, it kind of changed. But it used to be that you could be, like a lettering graphic designer, where all you do is you create fonts, and people will pay you a full year salary for that. And then there used to be just logo designer, graphic designers, and that it's still there, but you have to be best of the best to be a specific kind of graphic designer like that. And after 2008, the recession, like, companies and agencies were looking for designers that are like a Renaissance man, like a Swiss Army knife, just kind of know, like, how to design websites, how to do logo design, how to design brochures.
Are you saying that it's like that now, where
It's
they want?
Yeah, it's like that now. It didn't used to be that way because I remember talking to some of my professors, and one of my professors, he's like, yeah, I just designed logos for 25 years at an agency. So every day, 5 days a week, he'd go in and just design logos.
Right.
And but yeah,
And
that's not really a thing anymore. Like there's the specialists, but
you can
you got to be best of the best.
you could probably do that on the low end scale, like for the
Yeah.
like I think a lot of that has shipped overseas now to places like the Philippines,
Oh yeah.
where they're really not like I had a friend that worked at a place that they just cranked out logos for really cheap. But yeah, I think what you're talking about is the high end logo designer for corporations and things like that. Where,
Yeah.
yeah, that stuff is from what I understand harder to get now because
Yeah, like the firm that designed the new Mastercard logo. Like that was like an over $200,000 logo,
right,
but it was from a firm that only designs logos.
right,
And they spent like 3 months designing that one logo.
right. And they
So
probably designed the whole style guide that went with it and everything.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's the high end stuff that every freelance graphic designer would love to land, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
something like that, and you're freelancing, that could be your whole year.
Hmm.
Okay, so I know that a lot of people are probably like, I don't care about graphic design, but I think it's important to know where you came from because we all come from different places,
Yeah, and
going different places, right?
in my career as an illustrator, it all like comes from that design background that like when I first met you, and this is with a lot of people, like when I met Steven Silver and Bobby Chu, the first thing all of you guys like said was you complimented me on my composition. And that all comes from design school. That they teach you that when you're doing something as boring as laying out a page with just text on it, and they teach you, okay, like if you want someone to read this paragraph first, you need to make sure the composition hits here first, and you need to like make sure the graphics form towards this item right here on the page. And so those kind of lessons that I carried over to illustration.
Let's, you know what? Let's look at some of your work. I'm using Zoom now. You guys
Okay.
have to forgive me, but I think I can do this. So let's see what happens. Can you see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, because now I can't.
Um.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
All right. Cool.
Okay. So does that look good? Is it looking?
Yeah. Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. So this is your website, and very professional, by the way.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
And one of the things that I noticed, I'm just gonna hop around here, and if you want to direct me,
Okay.
a little bit, like I noticed you have the fan art and you have the children's book stuff, and is that Samurai Jack's voice, Greg Baldwin? Is that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he that was at a con, and people like I sold out of all of my Samurai Jack prints probably within the first hour, and he came by and picked one up himself. And
Oh, really?
he like took someone else's, and the other guy was nice enough to give it to him. And I was like, man, like if you would have told 12-year-old me that like the voice of a coup would have stole your artwork from another guy, like yeah.
Almost every time a celebrity has come by my booth, I've been gone.
Oh man.
And so I come back or I'm not at that show, and my assistant Wayne will have one signed for me, but I didn't get to meet the person. I did get to meet Ray Park for my Darth Maul, so that was
Okay. That's awesome.
but yeah, so it's always cool to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, in looking at this, I'm going to go to your shop for a second here.
Okay.
And one of the things that caught my eye, now it looks like you're not doing as much graphics on the
yeah, I've been trying to do more storytelling pieces lately. Like that's just something I've noticed lately. Like I feel like as you do this con thing, you need to kind of keep developing. Like what's the next thing? Like kind of to level up and yeah, I wanted to kind of change over to pieces that tell a story. So like this is an example. If you go to the second image, okay, that works too.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like this piece right here, like it's two characters. It's Clayface and Nightwing.
Uh-huh.
And you could tell a print of either of these guys. That both of us have seen prints of just a headshot of Nightwing or a headshot of Clayface. But I wanted to tell a story here where they're in the sewer, they're fighting. You can tell Nightwing's an acrobatic guy. Um, you can tell what Clayface's powers are. Like, so that's been my goal for this year. Each piece I want to be a little bit more dynamic and tell a story.
I really like your Batman.
Yeah, so this is another example. Is I think you may need to go to the other image to enlarge it. See the bottom one on the right there, that one. If you click on that, then yep, there you go.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is another one. So Batman's fighting a bunch of robot jokers. Like I wanted to try and be as original as possible, and make sure that this is something that catches people's eyes. Like
Right. Now we are going to get to why your fan art is totally legal, and some people have probably already figured it out. But before we do, the stuff that I saw,
yep, right here,
was this stuff where you had like these vignettes and this amazing graphics, and that's what really caught my eye. So I had gone, I think the first time I saw your table, I walked the show in the morning before before everybody's in there, and I just like I hit on certain ones that catch my eye, and yours did because it had these really nice graphics, and most people aren't doing this, and I always just look at things that are different, and so um, I thought this person definitely knows some graphic design. This one really caught my eye too. Um, and what's funny is when I showed your work to Jake Parker, he was like, really nice graphic design. Like he just right away noticed like that's
awesome.
setting you off. But because I'm not seeing those on the first page of your website, I'm thinking like you're feeling like they don't sell as well. Is that part of it?
Oh no, these definitely sell as well. Like
Okay.
yeah, like if you click on like the Harley one, so if you scroll down a little bit, like yeah, that's another good one. Like people are like love that one. That
Mm-hmm.
pure Deadpool, it's totally rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like this is still one of my top sellers.
Yeah, I mean Deadpool #1, but you did a great job. It's just super fun, and I think people like that. I would think that a lot of people would like to have what looks more like a poster that
Yeah,
says Deadpool on it, and it feels finished.
yeah,
Whereas a lot of the art you see at the conventions, it doesn't really have. It's not branded. A lot of it,
hmm
and
and
yours is.
and again, like that all came from watching your videos when you were talking about branding and setting yourself apart from others. I was like, okay, so all these people at these conventions can draw. Like, what is like the skill I have that separates me from the crowd?
And
And
that's it. Yeah.
yeah, and it was graphic design, and like I've helped brand several companies, so I knew how to do that.
Is that your girlfriend holding them?
No, it was
No.
just a friend.
Okay. Um, so then back to these. So, but you went away from that graphic look.
Yeah, just I wanted to try something new. I wanted to, you know, test my illustration skills,
Mm-hmm.
and see how far could I take
I
those.
think I went to the wrong one there. There we go.
And then also with conventions, when you I feel like when you go, you meet a couple different kinds of artists, like what their reason is for being there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have like the artists that are there to make money. You have the artists that are to like going to draw commissions with like Copic markers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the artists like looking for work. And I noticed that when I started drawing like these, like where it's just a pure illustration,
Mm-hmm.
I started getting more freelance illustration jobs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like someone saw like my Aku, and they hired me to like start doing character designs and illustrations for a board game.
Mm.
And like what else?
That's this one.
Yeah, that one right there. So when people saw that, they, you know,
It's my cart.
they yeah, they hired me to do some monster designs for a board game.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
And so I wanted to try and like, you know, tackle that. I was like, I like this feeling that based off of my artwork, someone hired me to draw a completely new, different piece of artwork, you know?
Hmm. I feel like I need to say this. Like, you said that you watch my videos and stuff. I just want people to know that's not why I had you on this channel. It's not at all. It was that your stuff stood out, that you looked extremely young, that you were smiling, that your booth looked amazing, and it really stood out. And I thought, man, this is, and then your story that we're going to get into. So maybe we should get into that now.
Okay.
Is like, why are you? Because one of the, okay, so let's back up, because one of the controversies about doing fan art, if you guys watching, and I think I'll stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
Let's see if I can figure this out. There we go. Okay. Um, so yeah, so probably the biggest reason why I wanted to have you on, aside from, your great skin, your great teeth, and you know,
Oh man.
no, is that you figured out, how to do this legally. And so one of the biggest controversies with fan art is that it's licensed characters, and it's a real gray area. Now, for some people, it's black and white. For others, it's gray. Um, I did a video on uh, the legalities of fan art, and I can't remember the title of it. But if you go back a couple years, like 18 months on my channel, I have one where I talk about the various levels. So I don't want to get into covering all of that, but in general, like Disney owns their Disney characters, and Marvel owns Marvel characters, and so on and so forth. And so if someone else draws those characters and doesn't, now this is where it gets gray, right? Some people will say, and some even attorneys will say, if you create a derivative product and you create something that is complete parody, then you fall under the fair use or the parody laws, and you can be legal, but it's dangerous, and so on and so forth. And I can't remember if I told this story, but I actually had Disney executives come to my booth one time, and I was a little bit nervous when they introduced themselves, and they just wanted to buy the Star Wars stuff, and they were the attorneys for Disney, and or some of the attorneys, and they just bought it for their office. And I never heard anything from them again.
I'm impressed with that story because yeah, the Star Wars guys are the hardest ones.
Yeah, they're some of the hardest ones.
Yeah.
And I think that if you have work that is, now this is my opinion I'm giving, but for me, if it's really far away from the original, like if you're copying images from Google, if you're copying images, stills from the movie, if you're copying comic book characters that were published by Marvel or any of those big companies, and you're not changing anything, then you're definitely in violation, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that still doesn't mean that they're going to do anything, because a lot of times they don't do anything, and so then people take that as, well, then it's totally legal, and that's not true either.
Mm.
And so some people have accused me of that, and I'm fine. I can handle the criticism, but in where I live, I feel like I have changed the characters enough. Now, yours, what happened with you when you started doing these characters? Why don't you just kind of go through what
Yeah.
you told me?
So so again, I met you at a Comic Con, and I probably went to maybe two or three Comic Cons before you, like as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I went, I always go with my friends, like, Dominic, you need to do this. Like, look at all these artists. Like, you can draw better than them. Like, why aren't you doing this? And I was like, oh, there's no way I can do this. Like, look how many pieces of art they have. And like, like it's a business. It's a lot of work to,
Oh yeah.
get a Comic Con. And I was like, and then you pretty much released the guide on step by step how to do it. And I was like, all right, let me give it a go. Let me try this. Let me learn from, Will Terry's mistakes. His successes.
Did you print up a ton of stuff in the beginning and go upside down a ton of money?
Oh no, I didn't do that.
That was one of
Because I have that graphic design background. I've worked with printing presses, so I had that. So
you understood numbers better than I did. We just, by the way, we sold our last Star Wars poster out of 1,000.
Really?
Yeah, we
Oh,
just
nice.
sold the last one in Seattle last week. So,
Wow, that's great.
yeah.
Where was I? Oh, so I'm looking at your stuff, and you're talking about branding and having a consistent style. And so I was like, okay, well, like all these guys can draw. Like I can't just draw, another Spider-Man like these other 5 guys. What can I do? So I was like, okay, well, I know how to design logos. I know how to recreate logos. I know, graphic design, and I know these characters. So let me create, thematic themes to go with each character illustration.
Something that didn't appear in the original IP.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, my frames, like I've never seen them in the comics. It was just Doctor Strange is this kind of character, so let me make this kind of elegant but magical looking frame
Right.
to hold the piece. And I definitely could have just drawn Doctor Strange as like a spot illustration, like yours is a spot illustration, but I want to just go an extra step and put that thing that no one's going to be able to copy me without literally copying me.
Right.
And
without having the skill and the knowledge and
yeah, a lot of people had no idea how I made the frame so consistent looking and so clean and stuff like that. And that's graphic design skills. Yeah, like part of it's illustration, part of it's knowing how to work graphic design software and knowing how to design things.
So were you an illustrator doing that?
Part of it was an illustrator. Like part of it I draw like on paper and pencil. Then I'd bring it in and clean it up the same way you clean up a logo. And you vectorize it in Illustrator. And then something else you said that I don't think all artists think of is like you'll create like your Tin Man behind you. You'll create that, and then you probably draw it at a very large DPI, correct? And then you're able to scale that down or scale it up to different print sizes, so that you have your $5 print for people, you have your $10 print, you have your poster print. And that's the thing that was kind of like the direction as well with the frame, is I was like, well, if I make this, then it's able to scale at different sizes, so I can offer people a $5 print, $10, $20 print. Because instead of redrawing a different picture for each image, because I've seen those artists that they'll have images that are only 11 by 17 because they drew it at 11 by 17, and it can't be formatted for any other size. And then there's the artists that draw just 9 by 12, and it can't be scaled up because they drew it too small.
So you're thinking, I mean, these are the things you have to think about when you're like, you have to take a step back and like plan this out.
You
can't just go in. I mean, you can, and it is good to learn by mistake a lot of the times, but if you take a second and plan it out, and I think that's what you're explaining, right? I mean, like
yeah, exactly. Because I'm sure you've seen it too, that some people will go like the 11 by 17 size really confuses me at cons. Like I understand, like I think the whole reason that started is it's like what a comic book page size is, like when DC and Marvel give you their Bristol board, that it's 11 by 17, so then it cuts down once you like cut off the crops and bleeds, that it sizes down to what the comic book page size actually is. And so all these artists draw on 11 by 17 now, but it's, to me, it doesn't seem that practical for like framing or
because it's not a standard frame.
It doesn't scale at all either. Like it doesn't, there's no like 9 by 12, that's a normal frame size. If you times it by 2, it's 18 by 24.
And that's what I do.
Yeah.
I went standard frames on all mine because I was like, people are going to ask. I thought, now this was all theory, and I didn't do the research on this, but I thought if I were going to a show, I would ask, am I going to have to pay for a custom frame, or am I going to be able to slap this in something I can get?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I was thinking, is I was seeing these guys with 11 by 17 prints and only 11 by 17, and it's like they're only selling one product now. Like that's the only thing available, and they have, 20 different drawings at that size.
Right.
So let me take Will Terry's advice and let me see how many different products I can create with one illustration. And so by doing the frame, I can size that at multiple sizes. And so I started doing that, and I started posting the images online. And I had a couple friends that already did Comic Cons, and they were saying what I was doing was, I'm gonna get shut down right away, because they're like, that logo looks just like the comic book logo.
Mm-hmm.
Like your work looks like it was published by Marvel Comics or DC Comics. And in my opinion, I was like, well, if you want the job, you got to dress the part. Like, I don't like, let me ask for forgiveness if I shut down.
So you're like, were you thinking, so if I'm hearing you right, you're thinking like, if I'm good enough, maybe I'll just get hired by these guys.
Yeah, it really was. Like, I mean, that's what happened with my graphic design career is I designed enough. I designed professional, business logos in school. I freelanced while I was in college and worked for companies. And so my portfolio was built off of all my college freelance work. And I feel like that's what, furthered my career and allowed me to get hired at, some of the awesome jobs I've been hired at. Mm-hmm. And because they saw, oh, this kid's already been designing for real life companies. Our clients are real life companies. Like he's already fits. And why wouldn't that same thing be for, the comic book industry or for the licensing industry, like if you produce work that looks similar to what they're using, why wouldn't they use it?
Right. And
so, and I of course heard horror stories from people. Like I heard a story from one of my friends that he drew just Star Wars stuff, and a rep from Star Wars came by and he's like, you got to take this all down within an hour. Like, here's your cease and desist.
What show was that?
I think it was at Denver. And
really?
Yeah. And so then, he had a naked artist alley table because that's all he drew was Star Wars. And
wow.
And yeah, I was like, I knew the risk. I was like, this could totally happen to me. Like, I'm sure you knew the risk. Like,
oh yeah.
But I mean, that's part of it. And so, so I had Denver Comic Con, and that was my first Comic Con I did. And I was just selling the framed graphic design superhero pieces. Mm-hmm. And that went really well. And then my next one after that was Colorado Springs.
Oh, okay. And, I have to find out. Like, was that a good show?
Yeah, I like it. It's kind of funny. They have it in
in like a barn or something, right?
Not in a barn. They have like in an old mall.
Okay, yeah, I knew it was like some weird building because they don't have a convention center, right?
No, they don't.
Yeah, but I heard that it was packed.
Yeah, it was really packed.
For the first 2 years, and this is either the third or fourth.
I think this is going to be the third year this year.
And we're trying to get into that one. We're going to send some friends to take our.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I like it just because you're in a mall, and Colorado Springs is like so this is talking about Comic-Con strategy. So any artists that are looking for strategy is so Colorado Springs is the
Air Force town.
Well, yeah, it's an Air Force town, and also it's not really expensive to live there. Like Denver is a pretty expensive city, but Colorado Springs is pretty affordable. Like there's a lot of people that live in Colorado Springs and they'll drive all the way to Denver because it's cheaper to live in Colorado. Yeah. And so, and what I've noticed if you have like a state with like a good thriving economy and you're in a town or a city that the like housing market's pretty low, like it's pretty like accessible, you're most likely going to be able to, like they have disposable income.
I know where you're going.
like so yeah, you can push things. You can buy 2 tables this time because you're like, it'll totally pay off. And
right.
And then
because you're saying that the people the people visiting the show have money.
Yeah, because they're saving money by living in Colorado Springs instead of Denver.
It really makes a huge difference. I don't want to, I'm always hesitant to like I don't want to point out the cities, but some aren't good. Some are really
Yeah.
tough to make a living in and we tend to like not go back to those places. And other places are, you'd think they'd be really good and they're not. Because
Hmm.
like you said, it's expensive to live there. And then places in California, there's so many shows um, that people are kind of immune. Like, oh, there's another Comic-Con this weekend, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's not special to them.
Yeah. And something else too is like, are you familiar with Fort Collins, Colorado?
I know where it is, but I've never been there.
So Fort Collins is like a college town,
Uh-huh.
and their Comic Con is the same weekend as the Colorado Springs Comic Con.
Uh,
So you got to pick between the two. And like if you think it through, and I've talked, like it's different for everybody, but I talked to some friends that chose Fort Collins over Colorado Springs. Well, Fort Collins is a college town, and not many college kids have disposable income.
right, right.
And so he did very poorly
And you
at
did
Fort
really well.
Collins. Then he did Colorado Springs the next year, and he's like, "Yeah, I did like 4 times better than I did at Fort
Wow.
Collins." So it's if you pay attention to those demographics, like
Yeah.
it really can help you in that business part there.
There's so many different flavors. Every show has its own kind of ecosystem going on.
Yeah,
You got to get
and
the insider knowledge from people that have done them before. Like, what's it like?
and you mentioned something funny as well. Is like, so Colorado Springs has the Air Force base there.
Mhm.
It's a pretty big military town as well. And so my Punisher print like sells out like gangbusters there because Punisher is a military superhero.
Right, right,
So you have these military guys walking around, and that's who they connect with. They're
right,
like,
right.
if I was a superhero, that's who I would be. And so they buy that. And so those are just things like that. Like I'm sure if you went to like, Florida or something, like Aquaman's gonna be like stellar because you got the surfer dudes or something, Like,
So would you? I know we're getting off track, and we're going to get back on here in a second. But like, would you, knowing that going to Colorado Springs, would you prominently display your Punisher, like making
oh,
sure that it gets seen?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I was to do Fort Collins, like I would display like my Rick and Morty piece because
Right,
Rick and Morty, is really popular with like that age group, and
right.
I'd probably drop my prices for Rick and Morty and make it accessible for them. I'd be like,
Mm,
okay, so the average college kid can afford this much. Like he paid $25 to get in here. How much do you think a college kid gets if he's working at McDonald's or Burger King or Starbucks?
right.
So he probably has.
How much does your marketing experience play into what you're doing at your booth?
Oh, that's actually my current job right now. So my full time job is I work in marketing and graphic design for an architecture firm. So
Which means
and,
separating people from their money, right?
yeah, yeah. So you gotta and I've learned this at past jobs. You learn like studying demographics that there's whole teams at advertising agencies that study specific blocks of neighborhoods before they put a billboard there. That they're like, no, we shouldn't put this billboard here because this is how much everybody in this 4 block radius makes. Like you
Wow.
need, and so like I didn't work in that department, but I was friends with these guys. I talked to them,
Yeah.
and yeah, they treat like marketers can be like they're like smart guys, but can also be evil in some ways because they know exactly how to sell to you and where to sell to you and what price to sell you and
Right.
stuff.
But
Um,
if you're upfront, like you're like with what you're selling, what you see is what you get. It's not like it's going to disintegrate when they walk out of the door. It's not like it's
yeah,
right. I mean, like it's very. I mean, it's very apparent what you're selling.
yeah,
But there's things that you can do in the way that you set up your booth, in your pricing structure, in maybe some giveaways and all sorts of different things where uh, you can tweak things to where at the end of a show it makes a significant difference on how much you were going to bring home versus how much you are bringing home.
yeah. And I think that demographic thing, like just studying the market of thinking, like me and my girlfriend before we do any con, we look at how much are these people paying to get in, and that helps decide how much I'm gonna charge for all my prints. And then and yeah, like, is this a college town or is it, like the main city in the state?
Yeah.
And should I print more of this kind of print or should I print more of this print? Like,
Yeah.
and and I think, yeah, you just gotta adjust what you present with some people. Like one guy I know that I think he's golden. Like he does successfully no matter where he goes because it's Chris Keiko, and what he does is his like main seller is his Pokemon piece,
Mm-hmm.
and so he did a big 24 by 36 piece that is all the Pokemon throughout all the video games, and Pokemon started in like 1996,
Mm-hmm.
and so that crosses several generations. And I mean, you can look at the Pokemon Go event and see how big of an impact that had. That there's kids walking around everywhere, and I was walking around, and my mom was even playing Pokemon Go, and
Mm-hmm.
so like it's several age groups, several different demographics. So he sells successfully at every con because that's just a successful, product and successful genre. And so I mean, if you got to pay attention to things like that too. That
Right.
like Stranger Things is huge right now. Right?
Right.
Like, I'm sure you sold more Star Wars when the Star Wars movie came out, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you just pay attention to those kind of things as
And,
well.
and yeah, and so if you're going to do this, that's great advice. Is start looking at what's coming out, and try to put stuff out that coincides with new releases and stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. So anyway, how how is yours? How are you able to do this legally? Completely
Oh,
legal.
okay. So
We've been stringing people on. They're like fast forwarding through this thing to get to this.
okay, so I get a couple cons under my belt and get the experience, and I'm like, oh, like you can make a living out of this. Like this is I totally understand like how people quit their jobs and they do this and this
Right.
alone. And so I go to the Long Beach Comic Con, and
Which is typically not been good for us.
yeah, well, I want to go into this later
Okay.
about buying an artist alley table over buying an exhibitor table.
Yeah.
But yeah, I noticed when you guys were there, yours was an exhibitor table, and it was placed in the very back.
Yeah.
But let's go into that later.
They don't let you get until you become ingratiated in certain shows. You can't get like premier placing. We're getting that now in some of the shows, but in some, we still don't know the right person to talk to, and so we get put in no man's land every now and then. So
yeah, so but that's how. And I was an artist alley table, and this is what happened to me. Like, and this could have happened to anybody. I really think that. So California, has a lot of big companies there, like DC's there.
right.
You have all these big movie studios. You have all these product companies there. So a Marvel rep came up to my table, and he didn't introduce himself as a Marvel rep. He walked by my table, and he kind of like crossed his arms, and he's looking at all my pieces. He's just staring at them. He just looked kind of like that business kind of guy.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just kind of getting nervous. I was like, all right, here it is. It's all done. Like,
Oh, really?
It's over.
You actually thought that? You didn't tell me that before. You thought?
Yeah, I really thought that. I was like, here's my cease and desist. Like, I'm done. And he walks up and he's like, hey, and he introduced himself. And he's like, so, like I'm a rep for Marvel, and I really like your artwork. And our company owns like a T-shirt company, and we have a Marvel license through them. And would you be interested in like us using some of your designs for our products? And so we were talking about these. Like I could see the way you have all your characters, like with the frame, they would fit on a bunch of different products. Like we could fit them on different sizes of shirts. Like we wouldn't have to resize them really, or you wouldn't have to redraw it or skew it or anything. And these could fit on these like coffee cups that we also print. And I was like, well, yeah, like cool. And we went through all the paperwork and stuff like that and how that works. And it's either they can just purchase your design and you can never use it again. And so it's like, we own this illustration. Like, thank you, here's your paycheck. Or you can sign an agreement where you get like a royalty, like same with children's books that, like you get, 10% of all book sales a month,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what happens. And so I did that, and yeah, it's nothing like major because there's so many t-shirt shops,
Right.
and Marvel's such a big brand that there's so many different designs and for t-shirts and clothing and stuff like that. But what I think like people need to understand that is that if you like reach out to companies that have licenses, and this is what I did afterwards, is I started researching like who has these licenses, like like this mom and pop shop or this company right here, they have Marvel stuff, or they have DC stuff, or they have Rick and Morty stuff. Like Hot Topic has a bunch of Rick and Morty stuff, and it all looks different. So like I went through it and I was like, who's printing this? Like who? And you can pick up the product and look at who produces it, and how this like licensing stuff works is, there's a like I'm gonna use a simple example because it's pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Is you have the NFL, right? Okay, so the NFL has so many teams, and they want to promote like their brand. Mm-hmm. They want people to show up to the fans or to the like game with, all the memorabilia and the jerseys and all that stuff. Well, the NFL is not going to buy a t-shirt company or a hat company to produce those, right?
Right.
Because they're producing football games. Okay. And so what they do is they'll sell licenses to other companies. So they'll find a t-shirt company, be like, hey, this is how much the NFL license is. So you can print the NFL logo on your t-shirts
legally.
if you pay us legally for $25,000 a year. And this t-shirt company is going to probably sell more t-shirts because their t-shirts are now going to be associated with the NFL.
Right.
There's already has a following for. And
so the rep that contacted you doesn't not necessarily work for Marvel, but the company that he works for has purchased the Marvel licenses. The one that
he works for the Marvel like division in that company.
Right.
So like that's his job, is to go find other artwork, because the Marvel like when you get a Marvel license, like you have like they give you to my understanding, we're talking to him about it, is he like they give you like stuff you've seen before. So like the first appearance of Spider-Man and some like classic Steve Ditko like Spider-Man, illustrations. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, everybody has that. So if you get the Marvel license, everybody has that. Everyone can put that Steve Ditko, Spider-Man illustration on a shirt.
Right.
And so how do these companies separate themselves? They go find their own artists. They go find,
because you guys are going to bring some creativity and some freshness that they could hire an artist that might phone it in and not do as well, or they can find you guys that are out there struggling to do your best work ever, and they just pick and choose from the best stuff that they see at these shows. Is that?
Yeah, and it's definitely not like you can just pick anything. Like how it works is they find someone that they feel represents their brand and the licensed brand they have. So if it's Spider-Man, this guy can draw Spider-Man. And so then they submit that to Marvel and be like, does this represent your brand? Like, sign off on it that we can print this. Okay, they signed off on it. It's approved. And then we can start selling.
Okay, so let me back up. So you're saying that a company might only license a few characters from Marvel, like they wouldn't have all the Marvel characters. Is like each one is separate.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to use the NFL analogy because it's so straightforward. Wow.
That because of different teams and stuff.
Exactly. Bingo. So yeah, you can buy an NFL license, and that's $25,000 a year for that company. But if you want to buy like the Denver Broncos, then that's an extra, whatever, 15,000. So now you can print, only the Denver Broncos on your stuff.
So maybe a company that is located in Denver, they're not going to want to print Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, exactly.
Print Denver Broncos. Okay, so for Marvel stuff, a lot of people probably don't want to carry the more obscure licenses of the characters that don't aren't as popular maybe, but they want to carry, and some probably do, but what you're saying is they just pick and choose.
Yeah.
So
And I know for sure that's how the NFL works. I'm not completely positive if that's how Marvel works, that if they have an individual like licensing agreement for each character, because um I mean maybe, I don't know for sure though.
okay. But so anyway, so you got this first one with Marvel, and then you said you started looking for others. Did you
Yeah.
find others?
Yeah, I did. And then and I started, and like some of them will, have different agreements with them. So I would notice like with one company I'd get, $4 per t-shirt sold.
Mm-hmm.
And then other companies I'd get 25 cents per t-shirt sold.
Mm,
But I like to look at this optimistically though. It's work that's already done.
right.
That
Exactly.
I'm not drawing a new illustration. I'm
Well, and interestingly enough, sometimes the face value, the $4 might sound good, but if that company sells 50 shirts a year, and then the one that does 25 cents sells 2 or 3,000 shirts a year, you're going to make more at 25 cents. So you have to do your homework, right? I mean,
Yeah, and something cool too. I wanted to use this as like just another example. So this is one of my designs right here.
uh-huh.
So this is one that they picked up to print on t-shirts. Okay. And it went successfully, and they're like, what like we live, our shop, we have a shop in Long Beach that it's a big like surfing area. Can we hire you to do something else? And so they hired me to do this design.
Oh, so
And so
you were all ready for this.
that's like a surfer girl. And so like even though the Spider-Man caught their eye, it was that introduced more work for me. Like I got to do
Right.
something else.
So
And
if they're and the deal was probably different because your Spider-Man was probably already done, right?
yeah, and so for that surfer girl, they paid me to draw it, and then I get a royalty off
And
of
then you
it.
get a royalty on top of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
It- and so I think that's what I want people to take that away. That don't like I don't think like there are people that make all their living off of licensing and royalties and stuff like that, but think of the other doors it opens. That if you're able to produce work that represents a company and is good enough to be used on products,
Right.
you can probably create your own original designs for specific demographics, like my surfer girl for a surfing community.
Right. Right. Well, that's really cool. And so, do you looking at the lump sum, and you figured I can probably do better than this if I go the other route with the royalties. I'm assuming that's because you went the royalty route.
Yeah, and I went the royalty route because that's just it's a constant small income,
Right.
and
And
it
that way
all,
you're not selling out the image. You can use it on your website. You can.
yeah, I can use it in my portfolio. Like I get
Right.
to dictate, when I want to use it,
Right.
and it was mainly just to get that official badge.
Well, and from what I understand, if you have actually drawn for these companies like Marvel or Disney, that there's kind of a, I don't know if it's an unwritten rule, but it's kind of a, you get to go and because now this is the way I've heard it explained, and maybe people will add more information in the comment section, but what I've had explained to me is that they kind of know that they're not paying the artists that well, and that a lot of artists supplement their income by going to these conventions. A lot of their artists supplement their income by going to these conventions and selling licensed characters, and that they kind of have a, we're never going to hassle you over this kind of policy.
Yeah, and and yeah, I think if you just kind of think it through, because that's something I always like to do is like put yourself in the other person's shoes. Is if like what we just said, the T-shirt company, if they bought the license from Marvel, or if there's a hat company that bought the license from NFL,
Mm-hmm.
Marvel already got their paycheck.
Right.
Everything after that is extra.
Right.
Like when you look at how much some of those licenses are, like they're, you have to have a company to do it.
Right.
And I've asked some artists, like, who do you know that has a Marvel license that's here in Artist Alley? Like, and I've looked into it, and yeah, and it's, you're paying in the tens of thousands of dollars to get licenses for characters. And
So if you tried to do that yourself, try to buy this license, you're saying it would be tens of thousands of dollars.
yeah,
Yeah.
and nobody's gonna do that when they crack down. And I think you can kind of like, I don't know if we want to keep this in or not. But now I'm gonna get like, so this is a little political, but
Yeah.
I think like something I wish companies did is like Comic Cons and artist alleys. I think are the perfect area to study their demographic and study what is still popular, what is still working.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure you've seen all the articles of the divide with the latest Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've probably heard of the divide with some of the choices Marvel's making with their comic books.
Right.
Like they're pushing like diversity and kind of working out some of the old characters. Like last year they made Captain America like the leader of Hydra, which is very off character, and they made his sidekick. And so just things like that. And some of it they do it successfully, but some of it comes off like they just didn't do their research. Like they aren't going to these cons and looking.
Well, it alienates some of the fan base, and they're trying to pick up new fans. And I think there was actually an article that said where Marvel said it, or I think it was Marvel that said it didn't work. Like their sales have dropped a lot. So, I mean, whether it's political or not, which side you're on doesn't really matter. I mean, they're reporting lower sales. But if you're a publishing company, you kind of have to you have to be profitable, or else eventually you're gonna kill the goose that's laying the golden egg.
Yeah, and you could just ask any of us. Like you just be like, well, Terry, what do you sell the most out of your Marvel characters? Like,
right,
what's still popular? And
right.
Or like I have one of my illustrations is the female Thor, because I like that idea. I like the idea of Thor's girlfriend becoming worthy of the hammer. But every time someone sees it, like, do you have any of the male Thor? And I'm like, like Marvel, like if they were just chilled in this alley for a little bit, they'd know what people want. Like what?
Well, and there's a lot of, I mean, they're getting a lot of pressure from a lot of different sides too, and so I think they're trying to feel things out and I think they know and have good hunches, but I think that there are a lot of different types of people working in these companies that have different agendas as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's like one person making a decision. It's a committee. It's a group of people. And so sometimes, in my opinion, bad choices are often made by groups.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's why most companies have a CEO, because the buck stops there. And that person is responsible for the direction of that company.
And I think that's why this gray area continues to stay gray.
Yeah.
That there are like cool situations like mine where I'll get some pieces licensed, and that adds that that badge to me, to my career.
Right.
But all of us drawing this fan art and stuff like that keeps the industry thriving. It keeps it alive.
I talked about that on my other video, that there's a lot of speculation and a lot of insider information that's saying that, that I mean, these comic conventions, people go to buy fan art, people go to buy the stuff that's in Artist Alley, and if they crack down on it, would it have, like, yes, then they could be the only ones to sell their licensed stuff, but where are they going to sell it? Just in the stores?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, why is everybody going to see their movies? Is because this stuff is being celebrated at these conventions, and a lot of the people that are going to go to the movie go to the convention. If like Nintendo, by the way, cracked down years ago on fan art, and there was such a huge backlash that they actually published an article saying, we're just kidding, we don't care. They like did a 180. They're like, actually, we said we cared, but we don't care anymore. We love fan art. We want you to do fan art. And
and then it's just full circle with, there's so many industries in a Comic-Con that,
Yeah.
you'll have an actor that plays a character in a movie, and he was only in one movie, like Walking Dead. Like, how many Walking Dead characters do you see go to Comic-Con that died 5 seasons ago?
Right.
But that's keeping them, like, that's making sure they can put a house over their head.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you get rid of us, the artists, we're not going to buy artist alley tables anymore if we're not able to, promote our artwork. And if we're not buying tables, there's not going to be people going to these Comic Cons, or they're not going to afford to buy a venue or a convention center to rent it out.
That's right.
Put these famous actors in the convention center, and then these famous actors that died 5 seasons ago aren't going to be getting, their money. They're going to have to find something else.
Right.
And then, like, comic book shops are, it's they're having a rough time right now, but you see them sell their comic books at these conventions. Like, people go to these conventions to buy, things that they're into, like
Right.
everything to do with all these genres and this pop culture, like, like society we have right now. And yeah, I think that's why all this stays gray. That you don't. It's all a balancing act.
I don't
It's like,
think it's ever going to not be gray. I think there's like you said, I think there's a reason that it's gray, and the reason is there's negative ramifications if they make it black and white, and there's also negative ramifications if they don't do anything ever. I
yeah,
think they want to keep artists kind of on their toes to be innovative, if, and the people who rip them off completely are usually not that great
yeah,
from what I've seen.
yeah. You and I have talked about that too. How and yeah, and this goes back to the being original thing and finding something that makes you stand out.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely those artists that just draw a photo. That they find a still from a movie
Don't change anything.
or a magazine photo shoot, and they just draw it, or they'll, throw it in Photoshop and eye drop every single pixel until, they can say they painted,
Right.
this piece. And like, and then you can tell, like, those aren't the artists that are going to get licensed.
They're also not the artists that are selling really well.
Yeah.
There's a few of them that do it really well, and I know some of those guys, and I've talked about this before. They get cease and desist letters. Um, I do know of a guy who has gotten, I think, 7 cease and desists, and he actually books himself. He's banned from, I think, over a handful of conventions.
Oh
He
man.
goes to the medium-sized ones, and he books under a different name each time
Hmm.
because they know what he's bringing in is anyway. And I don't know if I talked about this on one of our other videos, but Wayne and I sat there and on our phone we pulled up all of his reference right off of Google. Just Google Wonder Woman, and there's the
Yeah, exactly.
that is from Google Images, and nothing was changed at all.
Yeah.
And that
Or I think the one that hurts me the most is when I see artists that will silhouette another artist's work,
yeah.
and they'll put like a watercolor filter over it or something.
Right. Yeah.
Can I see those as well? Like,
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of the general public doesn't know the difference, and you'll see them. They'll definitely sell some.
yeah,
But anyway, I think we're going to digress into other areas. I think your story is awesome though, and
thanks.
I think there's probably a group of you guys out there that these reps have gone and found you. They're looking for the best people in the show, and I mean that's a really good feather in your cap to be able to have that. You can breathe easy when you're at these shows. You don't have to worry about someone coming and shutting you down, and you make money on the side. You make money at the
Yeah.
show. You make money at your job.
I think it gets you other work that if you can.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's right. You got other work from it. What do you want to do? Like, in your perfect world, what will you evolve into? Would you want to do nothing but conventions? Would you want to do comic, actual, working for these companies, drawing their characters? Like, what do you want to do?
Well, it's really hard not to want to do conventions. Like, I don't know if there's a more rewarding feeling that you spend hours and hours making these pieces, then you go to a 3-day show, you set up, and there's thousands of people walking through here, and like that when you see someone walking through the alley and someone stops and everybody runs into them,
Yeah.
you had to stop to look at
Right. Right.
like that's a pretty rewarding feeling. You
It's pretty cool.
feel like the pretty girl in class, that is turning heads. That I was like, man, my artwork just stopped that guy. Like
Yeah.
he like his feet stopped working right there just to look at my stuff like that. That's pretty hard to beat. Like I've done 3 children's books now, and I've done book covers, but yeah, I don't get to see that in person.
Right.
But
And that's exactly how I feel. I never get to see the people interacting with my books at the store
yeah,
and or at their home. I don't get to watch the kid as the parents reading to them. But when you go to a show, you get to see the people interacting with your art. It's very
yeah,
different.
and you get to connect with other artists and learn from other artists, and um, there's just so many opportunities to like so many things I didn't think I was gonna do that I'm now doing, like
Right.
designing characters for board games and like the licensing thing, like
Right.
uh, and it's just interesting and fun. And
So what would it take to get you to quit your day job, your graphic design? Like what, like, you know what I mean? Like how much would you have to make it
um,
show, and how much?
well, I'm definitely so this is pretty personal to me, but so my dad's a police officer,
Uh-huh.
and I love my dad, and he's something he always said is like the one thing he regrets in life is not spending enough time with like his family.
Hmm.
And so it's ever since he told me that like shortly after I graduated college, he told me that, and ever since then it's been a goal of mine to turn my art into something where I can support a family off of, that
Hmm.
my wife doesn't need to work, that my kids, I get to stay home with them, and I get to see every moment of their life. And so right now, like I'm as far as art goes, I can definitely replace my full-time job. It's just I can't replace my job and my girlfriend's job.
Right.
I want to replace both. That's my
You
overall
want to
goal.
take her with you and not have to.
Yeah, because like she's my partner, she's my best friend. Like that's
It's an interesting life. Okay, so Wayne, and you met Wayne, right? My
yeah,
assistant, business partner kind of guy. I never know what to call him. He's one of my best friends, business partner, assistant, rep. He might as well be my rep right now and
yeah,
fan art stuff. But he's doing 4 shows back to back. Now his kids are grown. His youngest is, I think, is towards the end of high school right now. But um, he's doing 4 shows back to back. I'm not going to any of them, but I mean, like, that's rough. But he loves it.
and that's something like my girlfriend goes. She helps me plan these Comic Con trips, and she's with me 100%, and like it's like a mini honeymoon or something, like every time that we don't just do the cons, that whenever we go, we always visit like the best restaurants rated on Yelp in that town,
Yeah.
or like when we were in Albuquerque, we did like the Breaking Bad tour because Breaking Bad was filmed there, and
Right.
yeah, like it's just a full adventure, and then my art pays for it, and I don't know how you beat that. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to beat that feeling where you're going on an adventure with your best friend while you're getting to see people in person react to your artwork, and then also those moments where they stared at it for 5 seconds and they're willing to, spend $30 instantly like that. Like,
Right.
you just don't. There's nothing else like that.
Right. It's really cool. It really
I
is.
mean, like not even like like football players or baseball players really get to experience like that like immediately. Like,
Right.
it's pretty crazy. It's kind of like I know like they talk a lot about like image comics, like Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, how they felt like rock stars. I feel like this is our little moment in Artist Alley. Like we
Yeah.
feel like art rock stars, that it's ten times better than getting likes on Facebook.
Yeah.
You get to
Yeah,
feel
because
it in
you
person.
actually see people and they don't see you right away. They're looking at the art. And so you're getting, what I like about it is you get these candid reactions where they're not even sure you're the artist. They don't
Yeah,
think like that. They're thinking, I love this. And you get to be part of that moment and you try not to ruin it for them.
yeah,
but,
exactly.
but
And then I wish, like, I mean, you first have to learn how to draw. Like,
yeah,
that's like, I see some people like do shortcuts and think I draw, so I'll be successful at Artist Alley. But
right.
it's you got to study and figure out what it is that like and I did that for years. Like I waited 2 years after like my first cons to figure out like how do you do this,
Right.
like who's doing bad and who's doing good
Right.
and why and how
Right.
much are they making, how much are they charging, and like why is that drawing selling, like Jake Parker, like love the guy, and when he was doing his fan art I was kind of confused because he's doing those like really simple like vectored supermans or like superheroes like Iron Man and Spider-Man, like it's just very simplistic vector looking stuff. And I
Right.
was,
Right.
it doesn't look that hard, but he's selling so much right now. Why? Like, what is it? And so just studying like those kind of things.
Right. I
And
think
like,
if people don't know what we're talking about there, you can just Google Jake Parker and like Batman. Just look at some of his or fan art and on Google Images, and he does these kind of retro poster looking things. And I think that's one of the reasons why he sells so well is one, he has the name, and he has a lot of fans, personal fans. But I think the other thing is they're just unique. No one else has a Batman that looks
yeah,
like that. That's really simplified like that.
yeah.
And
I think that's what you do so successfully too. Like,
I try. Yeah, I tried
and,
to.
and I think it's crazy seeing how many people are imitating you now.
Do you see him?
Oh yeah, there's several. I think the first professional artist I ever like, I remember watching your videos, and when you like were pitching the concept, it kind of made me think of like Scotty Young.
Oh yeah,
And I was like, okay, it's like Scotty Young does like superhero kids, but yours is a children's book style.
yeah,
But now I see so many people making children's, and then fill in the blank.
yeah.
And
I
yeah,
think my YouTube might have had something to do with somebody.
yeah, probably, yeah,
Somebody that copied my booth, and I didn't say anything to him because I didn't want to make them. It would have been way too awkward, you know.
yeah,
I mean, they copied like down to a T, like everything and the look of the art and everything.
yeah.
See them the next year, and I think maybe they just didn't do that well, or I don't know. But
Well, I think that's the thing is you can spot a copier, like
yeah, I mean, and that was the thing is that if you're not bringing something where people really can see something different, we were at the same show, so if they walk the floor, they're gonna see the original first, and then they're gonna see the other one, and they're gonna see, and the other person didn't do concepts, so they didn't have any like hidden meanings beyond, it was just the character. Anyway, I don't want to get into that.
so I want to hear this from you. Like, lay down, like some facts. Play professor for a second.
Okay.
So, so you see when you go to conventions, you see tons of superheroes drawn.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm drawing. Like, why are my superheroes like standing apart? Like,
For you personally, like, why do I think yours are?
or if you see another artist like that's drawing, this guy draws Batman, this guy draws Batman, I draw Batman.
Yeah.
Why though is that one standing out?
Well, yours were really well designed, and so like I'll give you an example. I had have a student who, he was asking. He was behind me one day or at one convention on the next row, but he could look through the curtain and see that our table we were just selling almost nonstop. This was one of our better shows,
Mm-hmm.
and he was frustrated and he's like, I'm just not selling. I don't know what you're doing. I don't get it. And I was trying to explain to him, I'm like, from your booth where you're at right now, I can see, he had a Wolverine was one of his more prominent ones. And I said, I could see like 7 or 8 Wolverines just from this row. Imagine how many there are at this whole show.
Yeah.
100, 200. Okay, so why do I, if I've got money, I only have a certain amount. Why do I buy yours? And his answer pretty much was like, because I'm here and it's good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it was hard to say, like yours is decent. It's definitely not bad. Did you get a pop up or something?
Yeah, I did.
Yours isn't bad, but it's, from the way that I'm looking at it, there's nothing about it that's special. Basically, there's nothing that makes me want to buy it. Now, if I look at this guy's over here, it looks retro. If I look at this one over here, there's a funny pun. Maybe there's a mashup. And if I look at yours, it's extremely well done, and it's got some a poster quality to it, or something. Or maybe there's a concept going on in there too. Like yours, you create a scene, something that they haven't seen before. But look at, like, yours is just Wolverine, and it looks like your reference was probably from Google, and so yeah, I mean, like, it's like anything. One of the things I think artists don't realize is that we're inventors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like
Problem solvers.
what's weird is there's no inventor school. Have you ever thought of that?
Oh yeah.
There's no school you can go to be an inventor.
Yeah.
In fact, like, a lot of people think that, like, when people go to Harvard Business School, one of the best business schools, that they'll be good entrepreneurs. Nope. And even Harvard admits that. They are not training up entrepreneurs. They're training up people that will take your creation, your invention, your business, and be able to analyze it and take it to a higher level, but
Yeah.
not to create it. And so as creators, we have to go further and further into the creation process of, coming up with something that is different. And that's hard to do.
I think that's another reason why I'm so attracted to the like convention life,
Yeah.
because there's so many things that you're trying to solve or create that I mean, for like a young 20 something, that I'm trying to come up with, like, all right, what's the cheapest, most affordable but safest way to get to each of these,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I take all my artwork? So there's like all this like creative packaging that I've developed to transport my prints, um, and then sometimes there's things I have to sacrifice, and like that's a whole adventure. It's like, oh, am I able to pull off a show if I don't have like this display banner, because there's no room? Like if I put this one banner in my suitcase, it weighs too much now. Like how do I invent something like to solve this problem?
It makes you creative through the
Yeah, so it's just layers and layers and layers of being creative when you do conventions.
Yeah.
And so something else like I was thinking about at my last convention was like did you go to art college? I can't remember.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to a school. I went to BYU, where they have an illustration program.
Okay. And I was like, maybe you do this with your students, but after like assignments, like when I was in school, they would take each student's like piece of work, and like the best piece of work would be hung up like in the hallway.
Oh, right.
It was framed.
That incentive.
Yeah, and you can look, from years and years, like just of all these top, pieces of students that like in 2002, this was the best student that did this kind of project. And
Right.
1998, this is what it was. So you can learn from all those pictures hanging in the hallway, and not every artist gets to learn that. Like if a student just did SVS, I don't know if they would get that experience of.
We're actually trying. I can't really talk about it, but we're trying to. If we can get the money together, we're trying to create something that will be a substitute for that.
But that's something that you get at a Comic-Con.
Right.
You get to see like who's the first place, hallway image by who's getting the most money. Like whose table is crowded nonstop. Okay, what can I learn from that person? Maybe I should be friends with that guy. Like let me go introduce myself to him.
And I think artists get so into what they're doing, and they just get, they get that con face.
Yeah.
That I can't believe, like, so Wayne, he's like, when we were in Albuquerque, he's like, if you go by the back row, these people will try to call you into their booth, and if you just walk by, they'll say something snide. They'll make a snide comment about you not stopping for them, right? So I'm like, I have to test this out.
Okay.
Because he did it, and then he watched, and someone else went by, and they did it to him. Now, this is their fear manifested in them being dumb. Really, I mean, like
Yeah.
it's just bad. I mean, it's we're all afraid. We all have our fears, and sometimes we have more fear than at other times. I had a lot of fear on my first show, and I talked about that. And I'm going to add this to the Comic-Con playlist, but. So if you haven't watched that, you can go and watch about the first shows and stuff. But I walked by, and they're like, "Hey, come over here and we'll show you this." I don't remember exactly what I said. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just going this way, you know." And then I hear out of the corner, I hear, "Why the hell did you come to a Comic-Con show if you're not going to look at it?"
What? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And they were saying it loud enough, almost like like the guy was just really upset that they weren't selling anything. But it's like they don't realize the damage they're doing, and also that they're. I mean, I've talked about the whole psychology of kind of ignoring the customer, letting them have their moment, and all that. But
Yeah. Something I got my mom to go to a Comic Con with me one year, and I was telling her, I was like, I think this is what I want to do. Like, I really want to try this just to see what happens. Like, and so she's doing the same thing, like studying the different artists. Like, why are people over there and not over there? And something she always pointed out is like that you still see it. There's so many artists that are like heads down drawing, and like that's not approachable. And
right,
like that's why I don't do oh, I just dropped something.
sorry.
Cut that out. But yeah, me and my mom are walking down all these artist alley tables, and she's noticing that all these artists are heads down drawing, and they're doing like commissions. So someone would come up to them and be like, "Hey, can you draw this picture for me?" And
Right,
then they're spending the rest of the day drawing these images with their heads down, and they're not approachable.
right.
And it's like that's something I learned from this. I was like, there's good money in commissions. But I think it's definitely better to like take them home, like and do it.
And do them at home.
Because yeah, like you're selling your artwork and yourself. Like you don't know if because you're not looking up that a Marvel rep is there and he may want to license your stuff. Like,
Right.
but if you're
It's like you have to develop a sixth sense where you have to kind of be aware of your customers, but not ruin, because everyone else is, or not everyone, but so many people are creating that uncomfortable. Am I going to get sucked into a conversation? Is this person going to try to sell me their artwork? And so you see it on people's faces. They're like, if you look at them at the wrong time, they're like, oh, and they look away and they keep walking. And
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Like you have to create an environment where they feel comfortable coming up or lingering, but yet you don't fully ignore them at the perfectly right time to not ignore them.
yeah,
And you can, and it takes a lot of shows to develop that. I feel like I'm pretty good at that now, but it's taken a lot of shows.
yeah. It's one thing that I like recently learned is like if I see someone even looking my way, because these conventions are sensory overload. That there's noise, there's costumes, there's colors everywhere. And if someone even looks at my way, like that, I should be thankful for.
Yeah.
So recently I've been trying to make sure like, why'd you look over here? Like, what's the favorite piece you see up there? Like,
Right.
And that brings them over, and then that starts a conversation.
Right.
Conversation, you know, starts. Like, I want this one. Let me look through more of your artwork. Okay, I'm buying this now.
Right.
And they may be buying it because I was just friendly to them, or they actually wanted it. But
There's a lot of different. You can't put your finger on it, on every situation, right? And everybody's different. Some people like to be talked to. Some people don't. So anyway, I think we've probably rambled on pretty long. This has been really fun though, and I love getting to know your story a little bit better because we briefly talked about it at the show. So one thing I did want to mention in here, because I teased this in the last video, is that I was going to report my stuff, like a report on mine a little bit. And I just mentioned that Wayne's going to be at 4 different shows. He's actually going to WonderCon. Now this is March 13th, 2018. So he's going to be at WonderCon, I think, next week. And then he's going to DC. And then he's going to Chicago, C2E2.
Jeez,
And then he's going to El Paso and then home. So I don't know how he's going to do it. But
that's crazy.
and people often ask, like, what's my deal with him and everything. I want everyone to know, like, he makes more than I do when he takes this stuff. And the reason for that is I could hire just anybody to do this. And I've had offers, people that have wanted to take it around. I trust him like a brother, like more than a brother. And it's rare to find somebody like that in life. And when you do, they're really valuable. Plus, he is the best salesman in the world. Someone will come in and they want to buy a $20 print and they'll end up spending $50, and so he upsells in a really good way. He'll like, well, a lot of people, when they buy this one, they'll actually buy these other two because they work really well together. And it's amazing, like, how people will like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and then they'll buy more. It's a ton of work taking your stuff around to these shows. And the reason that I pay him so well is because I want to incentivize him to do this. He's a real estate person. He could be doing a lot of other things. And, for him to spend all of his time taking it, he's got to make a good amount of money. Plus I make good money when he makes good money. And in Seattle, we made almost $19,000. So we broke our record. So this is kind of like an update.
What was your second best?
Was Denver.
Okay.
15. So it is possible to do. I mean, that was our first time in Seattle. And one of the things, and did I tell you about what we did with the giveaway?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I'm gonna give it a little, I think it's a gem.
Okay.
So he was doing this thing where he was taking people's names and they were doing like and it was bugging me because I felt like it took time at the end of the day when I just wanted to get out of there and get some dinner, Now that I'm on the diet, I don't really care about dinner as much. But I was always like, let's go eat, let's get out of here. And what he would do is he would have people put their name in a hat with their email address and their phone number. And then he would text 10 people at the end of the show and give them a free print. But his ulterior marketing motive, like you talk about marketing, right?
Yeah.
His marketing strategy was, I'm going to give away these 10 prints, but I'm going to tell them when they come back that they can have half price on anything, because as a winner, you get half price, right?
Okay.
And so, your cost on a print, our cost now that we're buying in bulk for a color 11 by 14 is 48 cents.
Okay.
Really nice quality, but
yeah.
a lot at one time. And normally they're like $1, but because we're ordering so many, we're getting the cost down. And 3 or 4 out of those 10 would buy a bunch more stuff. So at the end of the day, he would generate like anywhere from $300 to $500 extra dollars. Sometimes as little as 200. What's that?
Can I add a little something to that?
Well, I'm going to tell you what we did at Seattle.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead. I'll tell you what we did in Seattle that's different, but go ahead.
Instead of emails, what if you did Instagram? So they follow you, you send them an Instagram message, and then
we should do that. Wayne and I are old. We're old.
Oh, okay.
He's like older than me, and he's definitely not tech savvy.
Because I've been doing.
He doesn't think like you do. I need to get him on your thing. So what would you do? You'd have him.
Well, I've been doing Instagram coupons that if you prove you follow me on Instagram, you get $5 off of any of the large prints.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And that way I'm getting paid in followers followers keep up with you and they'll buy from you later.
And then with the algorithms on these social media accounts, the more people that are clicking helps.
Because someone will pick up your business card, but they'll never go to your store. Right, but if they're on your Instagram, they're going to continue
keep seeing it. Right. That's a good.
So I've been doing that. But Instagram coupons.
I'm going to have to get Wayne. Thank you for that one. By the way, before I tell you the thing we did in Seattle, I'll forget. You have a Facebook page, a group did you start it?
Yeah. The Artist Alley Tips. I just wanted to give back, like just same way you do.
So it's called Artist Alley Tips, and you helped me get on that group. I'm on that group too.
Yeah.
Artist Alley Tips is the group on Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. And people just share their experiences like this on there.
Yeah, like I noticed like after Planet Comic Con, like a
Uh-huh.
bunch of people posted their success, and it's just like if you're doing cons, it gives you a lot of insight. Like
Yeah.
and like I learned, which Comic Cons are now juried. That some Comic Cons are grandfathered in. That means if
Right.
you were the previous year, you get to go again. Now,
Right.
a lot of them are switching over to submit your artwork, and people
That's what
vote.
I've heard.
And a lot of them are like Denver's now that way.
Yeah. So you're not in just because you were in doesn't mean you're in anymore.
Yeah, your artwork has to be to a certain level. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like this jury, they work the con. They know what brings people there. Like they
Yeah.
know who to bring there. Like they know Will
Absolutely.
Terry's a big name. He has this many followers on YouTube. Like it's a pretty good bet to let him into our con.
When we got in to some of those shows by offering to teach classes too, and they like
Okay.
that.
And you just talked about the sponsor thing, right? The,
Which one was that?
you did like a promotion or something like that
Oh
for.
yeah. So for Seattle, one of the ways that we got in there was we took out an ad, and that's part of what I was going to say is that we, I think both of us kind of brainstormed, and we were like, because they alluded that it would be neat if you guys bought an ad, and that might help you get in, kind of a thing. Which is like
Yeah.
extortion. I don't know, but we were like, how do we make an ad that's really creative, and that actually works for us rather than just saying come to booth, whatever. So we were like, we took one of our most popular prints and we printed, we offset print 2,000 of them, and it only cost us, I think it was like $170, $180 or something like that in 5x7s. So we don't sell 5x7s, but we thought we'll make this little promotional print, and then we said we'll give away 300 of them
Oh wow.
on the each day to the first 300 people that show up. Well, then Wayne's going to tell them, and I wasn't there, by the way, but this
Okay.
did create the record show. He says, at the bottom of the ad, it's like, come to booth 509, get your free print. And then we put the print on the ad. Um, and then we said, to the first 300 people, well, that's a lot of people. Like, but they see limit, and then they're like, well, I don't want to miss out. So when he got there every day, there was a line at our table every time he got there,
Huh.
because and then people would throughout the day would come and check, and he's like, yeah, we still, he wasn't counting
Yeah.
how many he gave out, but he was like, yeah, you're still in time, and he'd give them one, and he'd tell them, it's half off for you since you got one of these, and they're like, oh.
That's
And
pretty
then,
smart.
yeah, and then he said he sold about like 1 in 3 would buy something.
Okay.
So
Have
I don't
you?
know if this is going to ruin it for us in the future if everybody's going to be starting to do that, but it
Oh
is.
yeah. I've like have a bunch of other things I've done that I'm like that made like $1,000 difference doing
Yeah,
this one thing.
yeah,
Uh,
it adds up.
yeah. I don't know if I want to share it with everybody.
You don't have to. You got
Okay.
to keep some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's
no, I love giving stuff away like that. And again, like, it doesn't bother me to see people that are creating things that are taking my tips. That's what they're there for. I feel like the more you share, the more you get.
yeah, for sure.
Really good for us, and I don't mind at all. There's a part of it that's kind of flattering. You
Yeah,
know.
and I hope more people join that Facebook page, and I hope you contribute more to it
Yeah,
because
I need to.
um, yeah, this like doing the Comic Con thing is such a good outlet, and it's like just opens so many doors. Like it's a door that can lead to licensing, to doing Comic Cons full time. That can lead to children's book illustration or
Yeah.
a comic book, or maybe an author there that needs an illustrator. Or there's just so many things that
Yeah.
you you can do. And,
You're there. You're out there doing it, and people see you doing it, and the connections are there to
and
be
they're
made.
and they're there to buy that kind of stuff. They paid an entry fee to get in so they could buy more.
Yeah, it's a
And
magical thing. Wayne and I always joke like, so someone that comes and buys your stuff, right? They're like way into it. They're like, some people are like, I'm so glad I found this. This is the perfect one.
oh
And for them at the show, your piece is the perfect thing that they found, right? And this goes for everybody that's there. Everybody that's selling pretty much has this experience where and maybe you have it more, some people have it more than others, but like the thing that you drew is they're responding to. But then we say like like a week later, if you showed up at the doorstep and you're like, hey, I'm selling these prints, you'd be like a weirdo on their doorstep, right?
Yeah,
All of
yeah.
a sudden it doesn't have the magic anymore. They'd be like, get out of here. What's your problem? Like, what are you doing? You know, like wrong place. Then nobody wants you coming to their doorstep, but they'll come to the convention and they'll buy all day because that's what they're there for.
So, something really funny that happened in January at the Albuquerque con is a guy came up and he saw a piece. He's like, "This would be perfect for my brother." And I was like, "Yeah, like yeah. If you want, ask me if you want anything else for like Christmas or birthday gifts."
Uh-huh.
And he stood like you saw my big banner wall, right?
Right.
So he like stood all the way across the aisle. He stood there for probably, I want to say 25 minutes, and he bought every single one. He spent like probably $400
Really?
buying every single print just because I mentioned like this could be a gift for December. Like you know,
And he figured out who each.
yeah, and he knew exactly who each one was for. He's like, this is for like my friend's girlfriend, and this is for like
Did
my
he have you sign
nephew.
them to each?
Oh yeah, I signed every single one, but I've never had anybody buy one of everything before.
Wow.
That kind of blew me away.
Wow.
That happened just because I mentioned that gift thing. That
Right.
I'm only here. Like you're never gonna find this anywhere else.
Right.
Like, you better take this opportunity. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being willing to do this. We've talked for quite a while now. This is I hope people stick through it because I think
Yeah, there's a lot of good information. So
yeah. So anyway, where can people find you?
you can find me at dominicglover.com.
And I'll put a link in the show notes. We already went to your website. Is there anything else you want?
Yeah, and then if you want that $5 off next time you see me at a con, just prove that you're following me on Instagram. So it's just the Dominic Glover at Instagram.
Say it again. The Dominic Glover?
Yep, the Dominic Glover.
Okay, on Instagram.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks a lot for being willing to do this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
I will see you later.
Sounds good. All right. Take care.
All right.